This is the Rugby Odds, where an unlikely pundit panel of a wordsmith, a WWE legend, a rugby star, and a supermodel scour the globe, seeking best bets and bad behavior. Are you not entertained? Thank you again for tuning in, and thank you for your applause. I appreciate and luxuriate in your adoration. But we have in the sponsor opportunity green room, John Bradshaw Layfield, the WWE Hall of Famer turned rugby advocate, along with his pal, King Gift Egbelu, Inventor of Words, and they're preparing diligently for our Your Company Name Here slate, which has got all of the stuff that we'll be talking about, but it also includes Mr. George Hook, who is waiting in the wings. So let's not dilly-dally. Let's bring in John and Gift so that we can get George in quickly. Gentlemen, 33-30 collectively, not great, but in a time where we're picking games where we don't know what the rosters are going to be because of the World Cup players committed and players being rested, it's tough to pick. So 33-30 is not that bad. We do have the business of picking the wooden spoon and the walk of shame, and we were all at the same record. We were all 11-10. So it does come down to tiebreakers for the wooden spoon, and we're going to go to the pick of the week. And Gift and I were correct on our picks of the week. I doubled down on Ulster. Gift went with the under in the Rugby World Cup, and John, guess what? You went with the over in the Rugby World Cup. So, John,
what?
You are once again united with Woody.
No, I went with the over in the England game, and it went over, dummy. Check the record. Check the tape, dummy. I put out a separate video. No, I put out a separate video.
That? Thank you.
Because
it's
I
verified,
did the
John. You get the wooden spoon.
No, it's wooden spoon that. I did the ultimate sin.
So we've muted John's mic because he's not being gracious in accepting the wooden spoon. Gift, don't go down that rabbit hole with him, please. Management is quick to...
Free the champ.
Gift, be careful. Very careful here.
Champ, boombaye. Champ, boombaye.
Okay, they're both turned off on the Rugby Odds. What were the odds that they'd have their mics turned off only 2 minutes into the program? Amazing. Let's bring him back in, though, because we have to get to the business of the walk of shame. We'll bring John and we'll bring Gift back in. Gentlemen.
Another reason I don't deserve the wooden spoon is the simple fact that I had picked South Africa first. And then I started thinking about it. And it was a toss-up, and I don't think either side was necessarily wrong because the teams were very, very even. Then I changed later in the week. And
that's precisely why you get the walk of shame. Right here on the program, you pick one team, and then you go out there after the people that listen to you have made their bets. Then you go on a Twitter thing and say, oh, no, I'm going with the other team.
I overthought it, and then I chose New Zealand. Now, it was a toss-up, so I think either...
You also threw Gift under the bus by saying in your little video that after listening to King Gift Egbelu, you changed your mind.
Because I respect his opinion. You notice I didn't say I heard Matt McCarthy say it. I said I heard King Gift Egbelu say it.
So in the meantime, all the people that watch this program and listen to what would have been your correct pick are now losers. And because of your weak need, lack of a spine, change of mind, you, sir, are in the walk of shame.
I don't accept. How about that? I don't accept.
It's not something you can or cannot accept. It's just something that happens. But you know what? We were all 3-0 in our on-camera picks for the top 14, which was a goddamn miracle because we don't know who's playing when we make these picks. Gift, you picked this up in the Premiership, where I was absolutely horrific.
All hail King Egbelu.
What can you say? Like, the Premiership is doing everything that doesn't matter. If you try and pick them rationally with sense and logic, it just doesn't work because nobody's playing for them right now. They got no players.
You know, the same thing could be said for the top 14 and the URC. But
he said the same thing about the top 14 in the URC. Okay, you don't have to repeat what he says. Okay, but it's because.
All right, he's muted again. He's now muted again, and we're going to unmute him when we bring in George. We're going to bring in George Hook now, and John, try to behave yourself as we bring in George Hook. George, welcome back to the program. Much appreciated.
Not at all. Delighted to be here.
let's get right to it. George, what did we learn from the Rugby World Cup final?
First of all, there have been 10 World Cup finals. I think this was the worst. If it weren't for John's dark and stormies, I wouldn't have lasted the 90 minutes. I was hopelessly drunk by the end, whereas I probably should have gone to bed.
Now, wait a second. You have said on this program that you don't drink during a rugby match.
No, but this match was so bad I had to. It drove me to drink.
Okay. All right. We've all been there.
But having said that, we've learned an enormous amount from it. The first thing is that they are trying to solve the problem of traumatic brain injury by issuing red cards. Nonsense. You know, it's like trying to solve the drug problem in the Bronx with issuing parking tickets. It doesn't work. You've got to change the game.
Why the Bronx?
I apologize to all my friends in the Bronx.
Have you tried to park in the Bronx?
Yeah,
You're all double parked.
So then, the second thing that we learned is, like, there were 4 yellow cards, one of which was upgraded to a red card, right? People were sent off on a rugby game in the real world when rugby was a game because of foul play. So some guy stamped on your testicles and the referee said, get out of here, right? I don't think the New Zealand captain deliberately attempted to take the head off his South African opponent. So it was not deliberate. 5 or 10 minutes later, a South African gets a yellow card, and that's not a red card because some guy in the bunker looks at this thing 27 times in slow motion and arrives at a conclusion. There is almost no activity on earth, including banking, where if you looked at a problem 25 times in slow motion, you wouldn't come up with a different answer. I hated every minute of the final. I sat there drinking dark and stormies like there was no tomorrow. The rum population of Bermuda was denuded by me single-handedly.
You've shattered my vision of you as somebody that doesn't drink beer during a rugby game. You're telling me there's no Santa next?
But it wasn't a rugby game. The only thing that really annoyed me was not one South African three-quarter has made the Rugby World Cup team in the tournament because you don't have any backs. I don't have a problem with it. I mean, I do believe it's cheating to have 7 guys, 7 forwards on the bench. So they have won the match in the same way as General Haig attempted to win World War I on the Somme by just throwing millions of his men on there and getting them all killed on the basis he might get 10 yards. The South Africans are doing that to the game. Would they have beaten New Zealand with 15 men? I'm not sure. I'm really not sure.
Excellent. Let's take a brief break and come back with George Hook after this.
Need a great price on a new vehicle? Sheehy makes it easy. Easy Price shows you our lowest prices on the Mid-Atlantic's largest selection. Find your best price online or at any of our 31 dealerships.
It's easy at Sheehy. Sheehy.com.
If you're in New York City and want to watch some great rugby, have some great food, and some great times, go to the world's best rugby pub, the Pig and Whistle on West 36th Street. And we're back with John Bradshaw Layfield, the WWE Hall of Famer, King Gift Egbelu, the Inventor of Words, and Mr. George Hook. George, when you go to Bermuda to see John Bradshaw Layfield, are you going to be splitting that pizza 7-1 split?
The only thing for sure, Matt, is you're not invited.
I don't need an invitation, John. I know that it's an open door policy with us. Come on, compadre. All right, in the meantime, John, what did you learn?
I completely agree with them about the red cards as far as being too penal. because you've got to also look at intent. And when fans pay, they pay big money to go to these World Cup games. They pay big money to see stars play. And to have something as penal as no intent and to take that player off the pitch, which affects the game, I completely agree. Something needs to change with that. What else needs to change with World Rugby, I believe, is you can't have a bunch of Pacific Islanders playing backs for any other team other than Pacific Island teams. I think you need to quit the poaching. That being said, the refereeing by Barnes in that World Cup final, the way he was talking to the players, talking them out of penalties, I thought was absolutely fantastic. Was not a fan of the semifinal referee, but that's how you do it. I mean, that's what's good about rugby. There was a lot of positive things coming out of this tournament, a lot of really big, tough guys. I worry about the disparity between the big teams and the tier 2 teams. It's too big, but there is a lot of positives that could be taken out of this. Hopefully they end up fixing what's wrong.
Gift, what have you learned?
I think TMO is arguably the worst system that's ever made. And I'm a person who actually enjoys college football replays, especially the refs replay. But I realize it's so different. The worst thing that could be about it is the fact that it does not happen in the moment shortly after the penalty. It happens after play has gone through, and that in itself is a strategic mishap. Outside of that, honestly, I love Smash Mouth rugby. I love big boy rugby, 7-1 split. As an SEC football fan, a salivatingly fun, defensive, crack in the mouth games, using your forearms or your head sometimes.
Gift Egbelu, that was a great reference, SEC football. To these big countries, these big nations. That is exactly what it's like. You watch SEC football and there are big, really tough men beating the living hell out of each other. And that's what we saw when rugby was at its best this World Cup.
No, but you've got to worry about American sports analysts, right? Who have a game that is played nowhere in the entire world except America, and they call it the World Series. Now that immediately ends all regard for American sport.
No. We're poaching players from all over the globe, George. We're poaching them from wherever they are from the time they're 12 and 13. So don't you say that. But George, I've learned that I need to listen more to George Hook. And George, with that, I'm going to take my time here and throw this at you. You had a little kerfuffle with Joe Marler not shaking the hand of Sir Bill Beaumont, the chairman of the board of World Rugby, and being called out on it in social media by Andy Good and Jim Hamilton coming to Bill Beaumont's defense. What do you make of all this little slap fighting and infighting with England rugby and World Rugby?
Believe it or not, in 1967, I played for the club that Bill Beaumont played for, but not at the same time. Then round about 1992 or thereabouts, I coached that club, and Bill Beaumont was on the rugby committee. On the basis of those two associations with Bill Beaumont, he wouldn't have got my vote to be the head of World Rugby. Bill Beaumont, whether he likes it or not, has now overseen the most disastrous decade in the history of this game. He has displayed no leadership. He has displayed no moral courage. And I don't know whether Joe Marler deliberately shook hands with him or didn't shake hands with him or what the heck. But for every Hamilton or Good who would defend him, you'd find a dozen who would not defend him. And the real tragedy for World Rugby is Agustin Pichot, who was the Argentinian scrum half and is their representative on World Rugby. He has been effectively silenced because Tier 1 nations don't give two hoots about the Tier 2 nations. They don't care whether they survive or not. And for that, Beaumont bears primary responsibility.
We'll be right back after this. You need your cleats? Yeats. You need them tomorrow? If you order today by 3 p.m. New York time or noon LA time, they can have them to you tomorrow. Young, old, male, female, if you're playing on turf, if you're playing on grass, if you're playing in the rain, you're playing in the heat, they've got you covered. RugbyNow.com. Go there now. And we're back. John.
George, you told me a wonderful story when we had dinner or lunch, or the one time down on Front Street in Bermuda, about the kids you worked with. I believe it was in Houston area. And that, to me, that is growing the game, working with kids that have never played the game before, helping kids to get better, be better in life, and also better in rugby. How do you grow the game globally? Because what we're seeing is we're not seeing the game grow globally. What would you do to help fix that?
If the game is losing huge numbers in New Zealand, then how does the rest of the world grow it if the major nation on earth is losing people? When I coached kids in Houston, they were all black kids, as it happened, and they didn't know rugby from a $3 bill. It was interesting. I'm standing there, and this man comes up to me and he says to me, I want my kid to play this game. And I said to him, what do you know about this game? And he said, nothing. And I said, well, why do you want him with me on this group? And he said, because I don't want him to finish up like his brother, dead. And what we achieved and it was Pittsburgh, it was Seattle, it was Houston, it was different cities, is those kids played a game they didn't even understand, but it got them off the streets. Now, I think we were doing more in America, to be honest, in growing the game at that level. None of those kids were ever going to play for the USA, for the Eagles, but we might have done something socially. The first time I ever coached kids in America, they were all putting what I thought was a tape on their ankles. And then I discovered, no, they were taping up the electronic devices that the cops had put on them to keep track of them. So I learned I was living in a different area. Now, the problem for us as a world game that we haven't done, we haven't got Portugal involved. We haven't got Georgia involved. We haven't got the Pacific nations involved. We've condemned them to a second tier. Portugal are not going to play a tier 1 nation between now and Australia 4 years hence. And that is to the everlasting discredit of world rugby.
Gift.
I love that you talked about Portugal, because it kind of segues to this other part where my question is, what is the significance of being able to play the tier 1s? If the tier 1s bubble themselves into their own segment, what is it that makes it that the tier 2 nations cannot formulate a culture of basis on their own, but that play requirement that people say improves the game? Why can't tier 2 nations find ways to be able to improve the game, playing against themselves, learning through other tier 1 or other coaches that are well talented, well experienced? What makes it that it's so important that tier 2s are blocked out simply because of the fact that tier 1s are not involved in it?
Well, I'm glad I'm on an American program, because the greatest capitalists on earth, of course, are Americans. So they understand that money is the root of all evil. And what money is the root of all evil in relation to rugby. The top 8/10 nations are getting richer, and the bottom 10/20 are getting poorer. So you can't develop the game if you don't have any money to develop it. And the top 8-10 nations want to keep all the money, and that's why all the competitions are geared towards producing money for them. There is a slight way out of it, and Argentina are a good example. Argentina are poor, and they can't afford to play the game as professionals in their own country. So what they do is send off all their best players to play somewhere else and get paid by somebody else. So the Argentinian best players get played in France or in England or wherever. And that enables Argentina to survive. Rugby union in the Olympics is 7-a-side. It's not rugby union. So in the greatest sporting spectacle in the world, the Olympic Games, rugby union isn't there. It's 7-a-side. No real scrums, no real lineouts, no real rocks. All you do is do what the Americans do. They go down and they get a few guys who are ranked 11 and 12 in the 100 meters in America. They get them, they put them on the sevens, they throw the ball to them, and they say, unlike hell, and score. The American Eagles do not have a permanent camp. The American Eagles do not have full-time professional squad. It's sevens do, because they're funded by the IOC, the International Olympic Committee. You're going to see sevens grow in America at the expense of 15s.
The Olympics is a much shorter period of time, and you can't do a World Cup kind of thing in the Olympics unless you revamp a pre-Olympic tournament to establish teams that are left to play in those gold medal rounds. But we're running out of time, George. And before we let you go, I have a question for you. Is Rassie Erasmus now the greatest director of rugby in Rugby World Cup history?
Yes.
Very succinct answer. I wasn't expecting that. And on that, no, come on, give me a little more.
Well, hold on. I mean, the purpose going into this tournament was to win it. And he won it. He won it in extraordinary fashion. He won it with only one hooker. So when their hooker got hurt in the final, they put a fella on who couldn't throw the ball into the line. He went into that game with just one back substitute, took an enormous risk. So therefore, what Erasmus has done is to give South Africa a methodology which makes them world champions. You can't argue with that. You simply cannot argue with that.
And Matt, the Olympics average is 16 days, which means you can play 8-team tournaments, 16-day, 9-day, and 2-day, and you could have an 8-team Olympics for the Rugby World Cup. So your statement was absolutely stupid.
No, it wasn't. You just verified it because you just said it's a 16-day tournament. You can't.
That's what I just said.
How many rugby matches?
Your retort was terrible.
George, I'm sorry. Just to eliminate any confusion, did you suggest that the 15s be played in the current Olympic format?
I didn't suggest anything. It doesn't exist. I mean,
exactly.
the day they announced that rugby was to be in the Olympics as a 7-a-side tournament, and I slightly disagree with the man from Bermuda, they had to get a type of game that could be done in a short period. Ergo, in the next Olympics, we're going to see cricket, for crying out loud. In order, John, I have to say, to make cricket work in a 16-day turnaround, they have to play a truncated game of cricket. Cricket was never meant to be played in a truncated form. It was supposed to be more boring than baseball. It was supposed to last longer than baseball, and it was to have more drink than baseball. You can't have a 5-day cricket match, and that's what's supposed to be 5 days. They have to have some Mickey Mouse truncated version of cricket.
Thank you.
Drives me to dark and stormies.
On that note, I want to thank George for coming on again and taking the time out of your busy schedule. Thank you, George. From New York City comes America's longest running and most popular rugby show. The biggest names in Major League Rugby, MLR highlights, and big match previews. Rugby Wrap-Up presents MLR Weekly, made in New York City. And we're back, and again, thanks to George Hook for coming on. And guys, we are going to look first at the URC, the United Rugby Championship. John Bradshaw Layfield, who do you like this week?
Hey, when you got Seabiscuit, keep riding them. Leinster, even though they get played against my Scots, Edinburgh, go with Leinster.
The Benedict Arnold of rugby, ladies and gentlemen. You saw him do it on his Twitter feed. And now he's doing it
no,
again. He's going against the Scots.
People out there respect King Gift Egbelu and I's opinion because we give them straight views, not on who we just want to suck up to, like you and whatever country Stephen Lewis happens to be coaching this week.
King Gift Ebelu's and I's opinion? What
Exactly.
the fuck was that?
That's
Direct
good
talk,
Southern
sir.
language
That was
right there,
direct
buddy.
talk.
Oh,
Good
boy.
Southern
No,
language. We stop biscuits and we talk about eyes.
It's like a
Dang
cigarette
right
in the
we
back
do.
of my neck. Oh, God. All right, Gift.
Ring, ring, ring. Who's on the line? That's Vodcom. All right. Bulls are about to bully over some zebras. All right. Black and white stripes aren't going to be doing anything but creating a target for them horns.
Ding, ding, ding. It's the bad humor, man. I'm going to go with Benetton. Crazy as that sounds, at home, 5.5 over the Lions. I'm probably going to regret it, but I'm going that way. Premiership, John.
I regret every time I see you. Northampton over Bath.
Gift.
You got to give it to the jesters of Premiership, Harlequins. All right. Look, 15.5-point favorites. Absolutely about to do some destruction on some Newcastle boys.
I'm going back with my politically incorrect Exeter Chiefs. I'm going to go with them again. They made me a winner
Why is
last
that
week, and I think they're going to
politically
beat back the
incorrect?
Bristol Bears.
That's not politically incorrect. Chiefs is not a derogatory term.
Have you seen the
Right.
mascot? Have you seen their logo?
No, I have not actually.
Okay, then you just be quiet. Okay. John, who do you like in France?
La Rochelle, you potato head.
That was really uncalled for. And again,
In France, hey, in France should be La Potato Head.
Gift.
Look, you got two loser teams, Bordeaux and Montpellier. So I'm going to go with Bordeaux.
I'm going with Toulouse on the road versus Pau. The WXV. We've got Australia versus Wales, France versus Canada, and England versus New Zealand. And these games are in New Zealand. Gift.
France versus Canada. I'm going to have to give this one to France because they definitely have the power. They got the speed. And Safa and Daya at 8. Absolute beast to watch.
John.
New Zealand at home to win over England.
Ooh, that's going to be a good match to watch because that's two very good teams. Australia versus Wales. I'm going with Australia. Pick of the week. John.
I'm going to go with the parlay. Meaning you put them all together, they all got to win. Only on the money line. Don't worry about the points. The Stormers, Stade Francais, and La Rochelle. You bet $100, you win $364. If all three teams win, forget about the points, just money line. Big, big money. The Rugby Odds parlay of the week.
You are so butch. Oh, what
Bam!
a pick. Wow. Gift.
New Zealand versus England. The Black Ferns, England. Last score was 34-31. But this game, the thick England team is absolutely going to keep it on the under as they are going to smash mouth their way into a lower scoring game.
Various definitions of thick. I'm going with Stade Francais -7.5 versus James Harrington's Castra. On that note, we are out of time. I want to thank Mr. John Bradshaw Layfield, the WWE Hall of Famer, King Gift Egbelu, the Inventor of Words, the inimitable George Hook, and thank you for tuning in. Please check out our other shows, including MLR Weekly, the College Rugby Wrap-Up. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube, sign up for our weekly newsletter, tell a friend about us, and please join our American Red Cross blood donor team.